What's going on, hikers? In today's video we are talking about overcoming some fears whenever you're headed into the backcountry. The first one is getting lost. In order to prevent this, you need to have a plan in place. Now, I would also take a paper map and a compass, but typically I stick with the GPS. I have a bunch of apps on my phone that I can use offline. I even download the maps whenever I'm headed out there on the app, and then I can see it even without service. Also, I have backups for my GPS. For example, I have my Garmin Fenix 6, and that always has GPS data, as well as a Garmin InReach Mini. So if you want to check out any of these things, I'll link them in the description below, along with any other products that we talk about. Prevention is key whenever it comes to getting lost, and then having some way to get yourself unlost. The second common fear that people have whenever they're headed out to the backcountry is fear of other people. Some people carry a weapon to deal with this. Some people take some self-defense classes. I often will go with other people, some of my other friends that like backpacking as well. But honestly, you're gonna see way more people just walking around town or walking around whatever city you live in or something like that than you are whenever you're headed out into the woods, unless you're on a very, very popular trail like the Appalachian Trail, where there's a ton of foot traffic. A third common fear people have, and it causes them to overpack, is running out of food or water. Now, if you're lost, that's a different situation. I'm talking about if you're just average backpacking trip and you're gone for a few days, you need to take some food, you need to take some water, but you don't want to run out whenever you're on trail. I like to plan my food out ahead of time. I'll do a little grid, and I'll do breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack. And then I know exactly I have enough snacks, I have enough meals, and if it helps, plan yourself a couple of extra snacks or an extra meal. Even if it's something really light like some macaroni and cheese that you can rehydrate. Make sure that there's water sources available whenever you're planning your trip. And when you get to those, you can camel up, which means drinking a bunch of water while you're at the water source, and then filtering and refilling your bottles so that you can keep heading out on trail. A huge one when it comes to running out of water, you want to maximize that water, especially if you're in low water conditions. And what I do is I use electrolytes. And personally, my go-to is what's called Element. And I have a special box of Element here. This is their chocolate medley, and it has 3 flavors: chocolate mint, chocolate chai, and chocolate raspberry, which is my favorite. I like to drink it in a little bit of coffee in the morning to kickstart my day. Element, all it has in it is sodium, potassium, and magnesium. So there's nothing extra in here that your body doesn't need, and it tastes delicious. Stay salty. Now, they don't just have like the chocolate medley. They have a bunch of different flavors. This is raspberry salt. It's another top one of mine. If you want to order some or check them out, you can use the link in the description below. It is drinkelement.com/Jeremiah. That is drinklmnt.com/Jeremiah. And if you order, you can get a free sample pack where you can try all the flavors and pick your favorite. Thank you, Element, for continuing to support the channel and sponsor today's video. A fourth common fear is called cryophobia. People are afraid that they're gonna get too cold and maybe even freeze to death at night. And I get it, I've been out there, and it's uncomfortable if your sleeping bag is not properly rated for the temps that you're in, or it gets colder than expected, or maybe your sleeping pad doesn't have a high enough R value. I always check the weather whenever I'm headed into a trip, and then I give myself some wiggle room. If it says it's gonna be 40 as a low, maybe count on it being 30. Or if you're around water, who knows? You could wake up and there's a layer of frost on everything. Be aware, you might get a little bit chilly around that 4 or 5 a.m. if your gear's not properly rated for where you're going. And then get warm before you head to bed. Now, this could be doing just some jumping jacks or walking around a little bit, or maybe cut some extra firewood that you can burn in the morning right before you go to bed. Then whenever you crawl into that nice warm down sleeping bag or quilt, then the air is going to heat up and it's going to help keep you warmer throughout the night. Another thing that people do is they will take like an Nalgene and they'll boil some water right before they go to bed, and then they'll toss that Nalgene into their sleeping bag to kind of warm up the down before they get in there. I love this. Just make sure you do a leak test. The fifth common fear that people have is fear of the dark. What I do whenever my wife and I go is I'll either bring a little lantern and leave it on 1 lumen, or I will take my headlamp and I'll kind of cover it up with something, maybe a piece of tape, or maybe just wrap it in a t-shirt, and then put it in the gear loft of our tent. And then if you wake up in the middle of the night, it's not so dark, there's some ambient light in there. You can also wear your headlamp around your neck, so if you wake up in the middle of the night, you know exactly where that is. You can just click and turn it on, you're good to go. And then before bed, I like to have a campfire. It creates some nice light, it gives me a chance to hang out with my friends, and it keeps me warm. Just make sure that you practice good fire safety before you head to bed. A sixth very common fear is fear of wildlife or animals whenever you're out in the woods. Probably black bears, not really going to be an issue. They usually run off, but in high traffic areas, sometimes they're a nuisance. They'll come in because they've commonly been fed there, they found food there, so that can be a different situation. Grizzlies, I'm not very experienced with because I live on the East Coast and we don't really have those, but those can be very dangerous. So legitimate fears. You will often hear though coyotes howling off in the distance. If you're out in the woods, not too scared of those. Wolves, we don't have here. Have a healthy fear of any wildlife that can hurt you. And that includes things like a moose or deer or elk or those kind of things. I don't like to surprise animals, so if you're in heavy bear territory, maybe clack your trekking poles together or holler hey bear, something like that to kind of alert things that you're in the area. And then properly store your food. This is one of the #1 ways that you can avoid negative interactions with wildlife. Even if it's mice. Mice will chew through bags, they'll chew through tents. Our seventh fear is the fear of becoming too bored. You're sitting there, it's camp, and it's raining, and you're stuck in your tent for the next 4 hours. What are you gonna do? You can't sleep for the next 16 hours, or maybe you can, I can't. Personally, I'm a fan of electronics. I bring my phone on every trip. I don't just leave it in the truck locked up, and I'll download some movies, maybe something on Netflix, or some YouTube videos, or a podcast, an audio book, anything that will help entertain me. Now, if you're not a fan of the technology, maybe bring yourself a small deck of cards. Just anything that will help pass the time if you're stuck in a situation and you're just sitting there being bored. I want you to comment below, what are some fears that you or other people deal with whenever you're in the woods, and what's the solution to those fears? If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give me one of these, subscribe to the channel, and kick that notification bell for the latest notifications. We'll see you in the next one.